Greetings, folks. Ealer here. Today's replay is courtesy of my colleague AngryAce, whom some of you may recognize from previous replays on the channel. Ace and I routinely division together, and in this match he's playing solo in the premium tier-VIII U.S. Navy battleship, the USS Massachusetts. This is in fact the black variant of the Massachusetts, and although its appearance is different, it is otherwise identical to the original premium. He is in a Tier 8 standard battle on Northern Lights, and there is one Tier 6 aircraft carrier per team. Now, Ace's build in the Massachusetts blends secondaries, survivability, and concealment. And for this match, this is going to be kind of a Massachusetts doing its Massachusetts thing type of game. And he's starting off here on the east flank, as standard battles often do, with a lot of long-range gunnery, a lot of standoff positioning, And one thing that's going to become evident quite early here already is that everybody else on his team that's here on the east flank seems to be intent on heading down the 9 and 10 line and basically taking themselves largely out of the battle. Ace is not going to have any spotting, or have very intermittent and inconsistent spotting for the 7-8 line, which is the main part of the flank. And that's going to be, I imagine, quite frustrating for Ace in this match. Now, it isn't necessarily a bad idea to send one destroyer to the 9-8 line just to spot things and see if anything is trying to make a run up that flank. But committing a large number of forces, generally, in my opinion, is pretty wasteful. And Ace, again, is going to have very inconsistent spotting. The Guepard here, that is at Ace's 11 o'clock position, although he doesn't have smoke, still has better concealment than Ace by a long shot, and could be doing a lot more to be trying to spot the flank here. In fact, we do see the T-61 that it has been spotting, or had been spotting Ace, and Ace is getting peppered occasionally here by the Budzioni. Now, fortunately, the North Carolina that is at the Foxtrot 7. In fact, we're going to get a devastating strike right here for his first kill of the game. But the North Carolina that is at Foxtrot 7 doesn't look like he's got an angle on Ace. And the Bismarck that was last seen at Gulf 8 is also not in a position to shoot at Ace as well either. So, but again, there's not much that Ace can do here. He's going to stay in this area for a little bit longer, but it's going to be fairly evident that the action will need to move more to the center of the map, where the opponents will tend to congregate and be a little more in force. Ace, I think, is trying to sort of stay in a kiting position so that he can move out of the way of any torpedoes that are being sent by the T-61. The Guepard, his allied Guepard, again, which is at Delta 8, providing very intermittent spotting, at least would probably be close enough to spot the T-61 if the T-61 did try to make a run on Ace with a torpedo strike. Ace, again, is Poppy is playing here, but I imagine he's, again, very frustrated because he doesn't have anybody that's spotting the ships that are on the south end of the map that he could shoot at. He does get a quick glimpse at the T-61, which goes back into concealment. The Guepard is going to move down and relight the T-61, and Ace is going to be able to get a salvo off on the destroyer. Again, you can see Ace is picking on the map. He really wants this T-61 lit up. He is going to fire here, but I don't think he makes any connections. Though I do think a couple of his secondaries do hit the T-61. Yes, he does get a few hits there. So again, kind of a frustrating position to be in. Oh, one other point I should make here is that the commander for Ace's ship is Halsey, and he will indeed activate both of Halsey's talents, the hit hard and hit fast. Talents will both be activated later in this battle, so a little bit of a spoiler alert, but you'll see it when it happens. Let's have New Mexico here that's starting to move up. Ace is going to be able to get some fire on him, and the Guepard is going to provide slightly better spotting. In fact, this is where the Guepard should be, where he is right now, to be able to better spot this flank. and Ace's secondaries are now starting to fire off on the New Mexico. Now, Ace does not run IFHE on his secondary build, and that's perfectly fine when facing mid-tier ships like this. The 127 millimeter secondaries will penetrate up to 21 millimeters, which is enough against all superstructures of all ships at all tiers, as well as many surfaces on mid-tier cruisers and destroyers, and a few areas, well, mostly superstructure for battleships. And he is going to set some fires here. So you can see the secondaries are starting to rack up and the fires are starting to take hold. There is his ally, New Mexico, that's behind him, is also going to put some fire. Now, one other thing I want to point out here, Ace's allied Massachusetts, that is directly behind him at his 6 o'clock position as he gets another nice Citadel hit on the New Mexico, finish him off for the second kill of the game and his second kill. In fact, he has both the kills for his team. But the New Mexico the Massachusetts that I pointed out on Ace's team, he started on the far west side of the map and came all the way across the map and is now just following Ace around. I don't understand why. Again, usually when I play any ship of any class, I try to stay on the flank where I spawn to be able to support that side initially and then relocate if necessary. If, for example, we start, our team has the strength and we can push the flank, or we need to retreat, or we need to position somewhere else to bolster another flank. But generally it's a good idea to start at the flank that you spawned at. Just at the beginning of the game. So as I mentioned earlier, Ace is going to move more into the center of the map because that's where the strength of the opponents are. We do see the opposing Bismarck that is on the Gulf 9 line, so he's basically out of the battle. A couple of the enemy destroyers, again, are moving up the 9-8 on the 9 line. They're not really in a position to do much other than put some fire on Ace's allied Z-23, and I think that's a Leander. Ace is going to open up here on the North Carolina, and now the Le Fantasque that is just south of him. He is out of range of the torpedoes from the Fantasque, so he's pretty safe at that from that perspective. Here comes the Leander that makes, again, one of the critical mistakes of that are very often seen of the Royal Navy light cruisers is that they get detected, they kind of panic, and then they drop smoke and try to slow and get in their smoke. But that makes them extremely vulnerable because it makes them an easier target to hit. And that's exactly what happened, is that he basically got one shot by Ace's the other Massachusetts on Ace's team, excuse me. Ace is looking to just kite the North Carolina, so he's not giving broadside, but he can keep some fire on him. We do see that one of the T-61s of the opponents has now gotten north on the 9 line and is engaged with the Leander. Leander is able to take him out. I don't remember if the Leander gets torpedoed in that situation. Here comes some torpedoes from the Benson. Ace will get out of the way of those torpedoes fairly readily. They are quite slow at 55 knots, so it's pretty easy to get out of their way with this much warning. Is trying to get some secondary hits on the Benson to probably try to get at close quarters. In fact, he does, in fact, get at close quarters, so that's one of the achievements he earns. And with this salvo, he finishes off the Amalfi, activating the hit fast talent. And what this does is it reduces the detection range of the ship that Halsey is on. So one of two talents of Halsey have now been activated, and Ace's team has a very firm lead at this point. Ace is up to 4 kills out of the 6 that his team have landed. And as I mentioned, he did move more to the center of the map. Now, to the Leander's credit, that is now at, looks like Delta 8, he is now the main force to sort of slow the couple of enemy destroyers that moved up the 9 line. having taken out one of the T-61s. I don't remember if he gets the other T-61 that he has detected right now, but it looks like he may be in the Leander may be in a crossfire. There's the high caliber with a nice strike on the New Mexico, but looks like the Leander may be in a crossfire, but there's enough force now on the west flank that they are able to defend that. I'm sorry, on the east flank, they're able to defend that without Ace being there. The Massachusetts rammed the North Carolina a few moments ago. That was definitely a ram in the opposition's favor because the North Carolina, was almost dead, and the Massachusetts had way more than half his health. He does survive with actually quite a bit of HP. So my guess is that he had the ramming signal on, and so was able to weather or not take quite so much damage in the ram than he delivered. But still was not a good trade of health in that exchange. So Ace is starting to press this flank here more in the middle of the map because the Allies have an incredibly strong lead at this point, and Ace has plenty of health to be able to push the flank. There is only one destroyer left on the enemy team, and that is the Fantask, and he's over on the 9 line. In fact, the Leander, as I mentioned earlier, I think he did end up taking out the second of the T-61s, excuse me, as in fact, the Fantask does finish off the Leander. But I imagine the Leander had been under some pretty consistently strong fire where he was previously. We do lose the Massachusetts that had rammed the North Carolina and then pressed into the cap. I imagine that in the ram, he took flooding and his repair party was on cooldown, or I'm sorry, his damage control was on cooldown. Ace is going to land another couple of shells here and earn his Kraken Unleashed. He does not have Confederate yet, which is the achievement required to unlock the second of the hit hard talent that is available to Halsey. But he has his Kraken. He has 2 devastating strikes, double strike, and a close quarters. And here's that Bismarck that had been over on the east flank all this time, kind of sitting in the back, and is now having to come and defend his cap. That leaves, in addition to the Bismarck, the Fantask, which is now in exchange with the Guepard over on the northeast side of the map, and in fact the Fantask finishes off the Guepard. But there is both the carrier and a Fuso near Ace's cap, so the Fantask is unlikely to be able to make too much further progress. The Bismarck has now entered Ace's secondary range. I don't remember if this Bismarck has a secondary build, but this is kind of a fight of two secondary ships, the Bismarck being kind of the classic and the Massachusetts being the more contemporary. We do, in fact, take down the Fantask on the northeast side of the map. That leaves just the Bismarck and the aircraft carrier. The Allies will not, in fact, detect the carrier at any point. I think the carrier moved probably to the southeast side. There is Confederate, and he earns the second of the 2 achievements, the hit hard. This improves the reload of his main battery by 20%, although this Bismarck isn't going to last for too much longer. Ace gets his 6th kill, and that's going to pretty much wrap it up. As I mentioned, they're not going to find the other carrier, and the team is going to cap out the opponents for the win. So I'm going to transition to the end screens. I want to wish everybody who does celebrate Christmas a Merry Christmas. Certainly wish everybody a Happy New Year. I may have a couple more replays to put out on the channel before the year is up, but certainly since this is Christmas Eve per the Gregorian calendar, I do wish everybody who observes Christmas according to the Gregorian calendar a Merry Christmas. Those of you still on the Julian calendar have a couple more weeks. And so early Christmas wishes to you as well. So with that, I certainly hope everybody enjoyed the replay and the commentary. Please do leave your comments below. And as always, we hope to see you out there, and we wish you happy sailing.